Imagine having everything: mansions, luxury cars, extravagant trips. Now, imagine feeling empty even surrounded by all that shine. That's exactly what happened to Lucas Baroni, a millionaire businessman who, at the peak of his career, discovered that wealth without purpose was a golden prison. He had what everyone desired, but what he sought the most, genuine happiness, seemed to always slip through his fingers. Everything changed when he found a forgotten diary written by his late mother. Those pages, filled with reflections and wishes, led him to a simple place called Villa das Primaveras, where true wealth wasn't stored in safes, but lived in smiles and human connections. Lucas, without realizing it, embarked on a journey that would not only transform his life, but also the lives of everyone around him. And you? Have you ever wondered what truly brings happiness? Are we chasing the right dreams, or just the most expensive ones? Lucas's story is an invitation to question, reflect, and perhaps change the course of your own journey. Lucas Baroni had everything that many only dreamt of: luxurious mansions, rare cars, and trips around the world. However, none of these achievements filled the emptiness he felt at the end of each day. While business people fought for a place at the table with him, the only constant companion was silence. As they say, you can be rich in things but poor in soul. Lucas, deep down, knew this. He spent his days surrounded by luxury, but each look in the mirror brought the same question: why do I still feel incomplete? It was like living in a house full of jewels, but without a single window to see the world outside. Wealth, which should bring freedom, felt more like a golden cage. And the worst part? He didn't know where the key was. His meetings were intense, and million-dollar contracts were frequent, but Lucas didn't feel the slightest enthusiasm. It was as if everything was just a rehearsed choreography, without emotion. Imagine living to check off items on to-do lists you didn't even write. That's exactly how he felt, like a stranger in his own life. One night, sitting in the office of his penthouse, Lucas looked at the city's horizon. The buildings glowed with lights he knew were paid for by efforts similar to his. Yet, in some distant window, a simple family shared genuine laughter. He wondered, what makes that happiness feel so far from me? Lucas began to realize how his material possessions, which once seemed like achievements, now sounded like reminders of something missing. That expensive watch on his wrist didn't mark the time of special moments. He remembered his mother's stories, who used to say that happiness is more a matter of purpose than possession. Why had he forgotten that? He tried to seek comfort in the advice of other millionaires, but everything seemed to be about multiplying fortunes, never about multiplying meaning. It was then that Lucas began to reflect. The problem wasn't the money, but what he didn't know how to do with it. And this made him question whether he had ever really found a purpose. Deep in his heart, Lucas knew his life didn't have to continue in this cycle of emptiness. Something needed to change. He just didn't know what yet, but it was clear the answer wasn't in the possessions he had accumulated. That emptiness was crying out for a new path, a new story. And perhaps the clue was closer than he thought, hidden in the past. On an afternoon with no commitments, Lucas began to rummage through his mother's old memory chest. Among yellowed photos and old notes, he found a diary with a cover worn by time. It was as if that object had been waiting to be found. The first pages were filled with delicate handwriting, full of emotion. Lucas felt that something important was coming. As he flipped through the diary, he found passages full of reflections about the simple life, values that money can never buy, and above all, about a magical place called Villa das Primaveras. For his mother, that village was synonymous with peace and genuine happiness. A place where true wealth is shared in the smiles of people, one of the marked phrases said. These words stayed with him. Lucas was surprised to discover how his mother valued things so different from what he had always pursued. She wrote about the desire to leave the frantic city life to live in that village, away from the pressures and superficialities. He wondered why he had never known about these dreams in her lifetime. Had he focused so much on becoming rich that he stopped listening to what really mattered? One passage, in particular, caught his attention. Villa das Primaveras is where I imagined we would find true happiness together, Lucas. The weight of this sentence was undeniable. He felt a mix of regret and curiosity. His mother seemed to be speaking directly to him, as if the diary had crossed time to deliver a crucial message. Further along, Lucas found a list with details about the village, names of people, places, and even small habits of the locals. He imagined what it would be like to visit a place so far removed from everything he knew. A place where children play in the streets, where coffee is shared with neighbors, and where the clock doesn't dictate the rhythm of life. Did this place still exist? As he closed the diary, Lucas felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. That little book seemed to hold the key to something he didn't even know he was searching for. It was as if his mother, even though she was no longer there, was guiding him toward a new beginning. What could he lose by following this call? Determined, Lucas began making plans to find Villa das Primaveras. He didn't know exactly what awaited him, but the curiosity and the need for something more meaningful were irresistible. The journey, he felt, wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. And this journey was only just beginning. Lucas left for Villa das Primaveras on a cold morning, leaving behind his routine of luxury and exhausting meetings. The road to the village was long, but every kilometer seemed to lighten the weight he carried on his chest. As he approached, the scenery changed. The opulence of the cities gave way to green mountains and simple cottages. It was a world completely different from what he knew. Upon arriving, Lucas was greeted with warm smiles from the locals who seemed to know the secret of a happy life. There was nothing sophisticated about the village, but the energy of the place was contagious. He noticed something curious: no one looked at him with admiration for his status or designer clothes. Here, what mattered was the essence of the people, not what they owned. Lucas explored the cobbled streets and small squares, where children ran and played. In the big city, he rarely saw this spontaneity. A friendly old man, who sold fresh fruits, asked if Lucas was Dona Amalia's son. That moved him. Even though he had never been there, he was already part of that community because of his mother. He noticed that in Villa das Primaveras, people lived with so little, yet overflowed with happiness. A young man who repaired bicycles told him how the village was sustained by exchanges and cooperation, without an obsession for wealth. Lucas remembered his childhood and the joy of simple things, like listening to stories around the table. He began to realize how far he had drifted from that. During a walk through the hills, Lucas found a group of villagers celebrating a birthday. He was invited to join, and for the first time in years, he felt truly included. There were no hidden agendas, no calculating looks. Just genuine laughter and conversation. He realized that here, wealth wasn't in the pockets, but in the relationships. While he was in the village, Lucas began to record his impressions in a notebook he had brought with him. He wrote about how the people there valued time and simplicity. It was as if life were teaching him that true wealth isn't what you accumulate, but what you share. Every moment seemed like a practical lesson in happiness. But despite feeling this transformation, Lucas knew he was only scratching the surface. He still had doubts and felt he needed something more to complete this journey. The village seemed full of hidden answers, and he was about to discover that one of these answers would come from someone special, Helena. It was on a sunny morning that Lucas saw Helena for the first time. She was in the center of the square, surrounded by children who were listening attentively to her stories. With her hair loosely tied and a radiant smile, she seemed to be the personification of the village's spirit. Lucas watched from afar, intrigued by the lightness of this woman who turned small moments into something magical. Helena was the teacher of the only school in Villa das Primaveras, a simple building, but full of life. She spoke with passion about how education could change the future of children, even in such a small place. Lucas was impressed by the sparkle in her eyes. It was evident that her dedication wasn't for status or money, but for the genuine desire to make a difference. As he learned more about Helena, Lucas discovered that she was much more than just an educator. She organized community events, helped residents in need, and still found time to teach the children about the importance of nature and cooperation. She was the kind of person who turned adversity into opportunity. He wondered, how could someone be so rich in purpose? When they finally met, Lucas was surprised by the simplicity with which Helena treated him. She didn't seem interested in where he came from or how much he had. To her, Lucas was just another person who could contribute to the village. He was charmed by her honesty, something so rare in the world he had left behind. In one of their conversations, Helena mentioned how the village had the potential to grow, but lacked resources and support. She dreamed of seeing the children having more opportunities, without needing to leave their roots to seek a better life elsewhere. Lucas felt something ignite inside him. It was as if those words began aligning his past with his present. Helena also shared stories about the residents and how each one contributed to the collective well-being. Lucas realized that, while he had lived surrounded by people competing, here, the key word was collaboration. He started to wonder, what could he do to be part of this virtuous cycle? After all, he had the resources, but lacked the purpose. Until now. Gradually, Lucas and Helena began to develop a friendship that made him see the world differently. Each conversation brought a new perspective, and without realizing it, he no longer saw the village just as a refuge, but as a place where he could start over. Helena's presence was the push he needed to think of something bigger, a project that would change the lives of everyone there. Inspired by his conversations with Helena and the simplicity of Villa das Primaveras, Lucas decided to take action. He called a meeting with the villagers and presented his idea to build a modern school, but one that preserved the values of the village. He wanted something that wasn't just a building, but a space to transform lives. To his surprise, the people welcomed him with enthusiasm, but also with caution. After all, empty promises were nothing new. Lucas knew he would need to prove his intentions. He got directly involved in the project, visiting construction sites and speaking with each resident. Helena helped him understand the real needs of the community. The new school would have a library, accessible technology, and even a small garden to teach sustainability. But the essence was clear: it needed to be done for and with the people of the village. Little by little, the initial distrust turned into admiration. Lucas, the millionaire businessman who once seemed unreachable, was now helping paint walls, carry bricks, and plant trees. He learned that wealth wasn't just in the money he had, but in the willingness to use it for something greater. It was a lesson he never expected to learn. During the project, Lucas came into direct contact with inspiring stories from the villagers. An elderly woman told him how the village was formed by families who fled the hardships of city life. A young man shared how he dreamed of becoming a teacher, but had never had the opportunity. These stories reinforced to Lucas the importance of creating a legacy that would provide real opportunities. The new school began to take shape, and with it, a wave of hope spread throughout Villa das Primaveras. The children helped paint murals, the residents brought coffee to the workers, and even Helena got involved, coordinating activities. Lucas felt that this wasn't just a physical project, but a symbol of everything the village represented: unity, simplicity, and purpose. Lucas realized that the impact of his project went beyond the village. He began to think about how such initiatives could inspire other places. And for the first time, he felt connected to the type of wealth his mother had so valued. Villa das Primaveras wasn't just a physical place, but an idea that happiness is something shared, built in community. Despite the progress, Lucas knew something else was yet to come. He felt that the village held more secrets, and that his mother, in some way, was guiding him on this journey. Helena's presence also made him question whether all of this was more than just destiny. Every day, he drew closer to answers that could change his life forever. While helping organize old documents for the school, Lucas found a forgotten folder in a cabinet at the local town hall. Among yellowed papers and donation records, one name caught his attention: Lucas Baroni. It was impossible not to recognize his mother's name. This small village was not only the place of her dreams, it was part of her story. Talking with Helena and the older residents, Lucas learned that his mother had visited Villa das Primaveras decades ago. She not only knew the place, but had made anonymous donations that helped maintain the original school. Helena, visibly moved, revealed that one of those donations had made it possible for her to become a teacher. It was as if Lucas's mother had planted seeds that were now beginning to bloom. Lucas felt a mix of pride and regret. His mother had connected deeply with that village, but he had never known it while she was alive. It was as if she had tried to show him the way to a more meaningful life, but he had been too busy chasing the symbols of success. Now, he had a chance to honor her legacy. Amid these discoveries, Helena shared something that surprised Lucas even more. Before becoming a teacher, she had briefly worked for one of his family's companies but left when she realized it wasn't her purpose. This detail seemed to further intertwine their paths. Lucas realized that, in different ways, their lives had been connected from the very beginning. The revelations of the past gave new meaning to Lucas's presence in the village. He wasn't there by chance. Every step of this journey seemed guided by something greater, as if his mother was acting as a beacon in the middle of the fog. As he shared these stories with Helena, he felt an even deeper connection with her and with Villa das Primaveras. Motivated by these discoveries, Lucas decided to create a memorial in honor of his mother, where the children of the village could learn about values like generosity and empathy. Helena helped him design the space, which would also serve as a place to learn about the history of Villa das Primaveras. It was a simple gesture, but one filled with meaning for everyone. Despite so many answers, Lucas felt that there was still something to discover. His mother seemed to have lived such an intense connection with that place, and he wanted to fully understand what had driven her. And, of course, there was the constant presence of Helena, who wasn't just a friend, but someone who awakened feelings in him he didn't know were possible. Lucas made a decision that many would consider unthinkable, to sell part of his assets and abandon his old life to settle permanently in Villa das Primaveras. The millionaire businessman who once lived for meetings and figures now woke up to the sound of birds and dedicated his time to the school, the children, and the community. It was a leap of faith, but he felt he was exactly where he needed to be. The first days were marked by adjustments. He traded expensive suits for simple clothes and began to adopt the village's routine. He participated in community festivals, helped with the planting, and even learned to cook typical dishes with the local women. The change wasn't just external. Lucas felt that his heart, once hardened, now beat with more lightness and purpose. With Helena's help, Lucas created educational programs that connected the children to global opportunities without them needing to give up their roots. He also began organizing meetings to share with other entrepreneurs what he had learned about real wealth, the kind measured by the positive impact you create, not just by your bank balance. Little by little, Lucas and Helena became more than project partners. Their friendship evolved into a love that felt as natural as the sunrise over the village hills. They complemented each other in a unique way. While Helena brought a passion for simplicity, Lucas contributed with his strategic vision. Together, they were a transformative force. The school, now completely renovated, became a symbol of Lucas's new purpose. He began to realize how each child who learned there carried a piece of his mother's legacy. The village, once a simple suggestion in a diary, was now his home, and the people who lived there were his chosen family. Lucas didn't miss his old life. Instead, he felt gratitude for having walked that path. He understood that every step, every achievement, and even every mistake had brought him to Villa das Primaveras. It was as if the universe had orchestrated everything so he could find his true wealth. And that wealth was abundant. Now, walking through the village streets, Lucas felt a serenity he had never experienced before. The man who once measured his worth by what he owned now knew that happiness was something built in community, with love and purpose. And, alongside Helena, he was ready to write a new chapter of this story. And now, after following Lucas's journey, the question remains, what are you doing to build your own happiness? Are you living for what truly matters, or just following the flow of what others say is success? Maybe it's time to rethink your priorities, to seek purpose instead of possession, and to connect with what really makes your heart beat. If Lucas, a millionaire surrounded by luxury, found true wealth in a simple village, what's stopping you from seeking your own transformation? You can start small. How about valuing your relationships more? Reserving time for what brings you peace? Or even asking yourself what legacy you want to leave? Action is the first step toward any change. Now, I want to hear from you. What stood out to you the most in this story? What can you apply in your life today? Leave your comment and share your reflections. And if you want to continue learning and getting inspired by stories that can change lives, subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications. This could be the turning point you've been waiting for.